Dr. Richie here. You know, one of my most wanted sequels is ARMS 2. In fact, I think it's quite possible for it to be announced in the near future. In today's video, I'll be sharing some of my ideas for ARMS 2, alongside some speculation regarding how likely it actually is. Without any further ado, let's get started. First, we should speculate for a bit, before diving into the fun stuff. We know that ARMS was created by the same development team that works on the Mario Kart series. We also know that instead of making a new Mario Kart for the Switch, the dev team simply ported Mario Kart 8 and added some more content to it, which turned out to be quite profitable for Nintendo. Just take a look at how much Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold and you'll know what I'm talking about. We also now have DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which will last until late 2023. With the announcement of the Booster Course Pass, it's safe to say that the next Mario Kart might skip the Switch and probably be a launch title for Nintendo's next console. Okay, going back to ARMS. We know that the game stopped receiving major updates, such as new characters in December of 2017. And ever since then, we have had no idea what the development team has been working on. And by the looks of it, they aren't necessarily in a hurry to release a new Mario Kart. Which could mean that they may have been working on ARMS 2. Or at least, developing it alongside a new Mario Kart. Many people often overlook the fact that ARMS managed to sell over 2 million copies despite being a new IP in a niche subgenre. ARMS even received a playable character in Smash Bros. In the form of Min Min. Which to me still feels a bit surreal, but I'm glad it happened. With all of this speculation and analysis out of the way, let's take a look at what a potential ARMS 2 could offer. Probably the most requested thing for ARMS 2 is a proper story mode. Currently, the closest thing ARMS has to a story mode is the Grand Prix mode, in which Biff sometimes drops small but interesting bits of ARMS lore in between matches. The dev team also added an in-game gallery, which also happens to have some more ARMS lore. But with a world as interesting as ARMS, why limit yourself to just some dialogue? Why not add a proper story mode in which players get to learn more about these characters? Because most of the lore ARMS has is world building stuff. We barely know anything about the characters themselves. Dr. Coyle is the only exception to this. This is why she is a popular character amongst ARMS fans. And while I'm not a game designer or a developer, I do have some interesting ideas as to how a story mode can work in ARMS. I would also like to point out that there are two options I can see Nintendo taking to add a story mode to ARMS. The first one would be improving the Grand Prix mode by adding some cutscenes and more substantial dialogue for Biff. Maybe even have him be fully voice acted like he was in all the promotional ARMS material. As for the second option, they can add a story mode that's completely separate from the Grand Prix mode. In this mode, they can have the characters explore an ARMS Labs facility, from which they would have to escape. While inside this facility, players would have to face new ARMS Labs creations in boss battles, fight robotic versions of other fighters, and collect documents and videotapes detailing ARMS lore. Taking into account that the ARMS Labs are constantly spying on everyone, the documents and videotapes collected in this mode can give us more information about the fighters. As you can tell, there's simply way too much potential for a story mode in ARMS 2. Now let's jump to the next point. With a new game come new mechanics. Thankfully, I've managed to come up with some interesting ones. Have you ever faced an aggressive player that constantly corners you? And you also happen to have bad aiming? Well, having a close range attack would certainly help you in these scenarios. Maybe the development team can give every character an uppercut or something similar to it. Am I the only one who thinks that getting up after being knocked down takes quite some time? I mean, there must be more people out there who can relate to what I just said. Anyways, I would personally like to see a quick get up mechanic. For the sake of simplicity, let's call this mechanic Bounce. Being able to bounce right back up would certainly help speed up the pace of arms matches. Not to mention that it would also make you less predictable. I would imagine that to balance this mechanic, the player would be required to have precise timing and also be left vulnerable for a couple of frames after using said mechanic. You know, rush attacks are quite creative when it comes to special attacks. Sometimes, rush attacks will require more precision depending on what gloves you are using. And sometimes it will be relatively easy to hit your opponent with them. But why not add some more variety to special attacks by adding a more powerful version? What if every character had a super rush attack? These upgraded versions would require you to fill your rush gauge for a little longer to use them. They would essentially act like final smashes. I know that sometimes things are easier said than done, but I have some ideas for what type of super rushes certain characters would use. Let's see. Springman's gloves could become huge, and he would then charge forward and deal massive damage if he happens to hit someone. Ribbon Girl could begin to sing and release sound waves that would target the opponent. Master Mummy could trap the opponent inside his coffin. Then he would grab it and slam it to the ground. As for Min Min, both of her arms could turn into dragons and fire huge lasers. Twin Tail could simply slow down time for a brief period. Lola Pop could inflate herself way too much and start bouncing all over the stage. Dr. Coil would simply equip Headlock and fire a huge fireball. I couldn't think of a super rush for every character, but I'm pretty sure the development team can come up with something for them. For the last mechanic, I got some inspiration from Golden Headlock. If players have their rush gauge full when grabbing someone, they would be able to activate it and perform a stronger and quicker throw. Once again, I'm not a game designer to fully comprehend whether or not these mechanics might break the game or be balanced. But if a fan like me can come up with new mechanics, then I'm pretty sure the development team can as well. Now let's move on to the next point. When ARMS was first released, unlocking all the gloves was quite a chore. You had to unlock every single glove for each character, and on top of that, sometimes the character you were using didn't receive that many gloves. Not to mention how you also had to unlock every glove for every character a second time if you wanted them to deal more damage. It was quite a nightmare. That's why I would love to see a level up system for gloves and arms too. Allow me to explain how this level up system would work. Let's say you are playing as Twin Tail. While playing the arms get a minute game, you would only unlock gloves for Twin Tail. Once unlocked, these gloves would be able to level up as you continue to use them. Want to increase their damage output? Well, then simply use them in battle. It's that simple. Not to mention that this level up system would incentivize players to level up their gloves, but also force them to try out different types of gloves and learn to use them in the process. Speaking of gloves, I just happened to remember something. What I'm about to talk about next should technically have been included in the new mechanics section of this video. But given how divisive it can be among ARMS fans, I think it deserves its own section. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, who knows. A game-changing mechanic that could be implemented in ARMS 2 would be being able to switch your gloves during battle. When this topic is brought up, people will usually say that being able to switch your gloves would defeat the whole point of counterpicking gloves. But I think I've managed to find a nice middle ground to overcome this problem. Please allow me to elaborate. The way I can see this mechanic working would be the following. First, players would select their respective set of 3 gloves on the character selection screen. Once the player has finished choosing their set of gloves, they will be taken to a stage. While prepping for battle, players would have to choose 2 different sets of gloves, a primary set and a secondary set. Both of these sets can only consist of the 3 gloves they choose on the character selection screen. Now you would be able to switch your gloves during battle by simply pressing a button. I hope this answered any questions you might have. This mechanic combined with all the previous ones I mentioned could greatly improve and add more strategy to ARMS. Now let's take a closer look at what new modes ARMS 2 could feature. These are pretty much all the modes ARMS currently has, excluding some stuff such as online lobbies, private lobbies, and the party crash events. In fact, there are even some unused modes that didn't make it to the game. Let's take a look at them. The first scrapped mode and probably the easiest one to add to the game would be a first person mode. I just think it would be a nice little addition the game could receive. Maybe if Nintendo's next console has VR support, this mode could certainly be fully implemented into the game. Just thinking about how immersive this mode can be makes me want it even more. Another unused mode that I'm surprised didn't make it to the game is bowling. Just a casual minigame people could play on split screen. Now allow me to introduce you to some of the modes I was able to come up with. The first one is All-Star mode. In this mode, you'll choose your set of gloves at the start and take on every arms fighter. Don't worry about running low on health because health bottles will occasionally appear and help you restore some HP. Once you have defeated every arms fighter, you'll have to face a clone of yourself. The next mode is Whack a Cell. In this mode, a cell will pop up from a random hole. Make sure to punch it before it disappears. Sometimes arms will appear, so punch them to unlock them. But be careful because an electric bomb might also appear and ruin your day. This minigame will help new players learn how to quickly change targets and arms and also be fun in the process. Surprisingly, I have come across several players who don't know how to target other players in multiplayer battles, which can be quite infuriating for them. Another thing I've noticed new players struggle with is movement, and the following mode could help them improve in this regard. This mode is called Hole in the Wall. In said mode, a wall with holes will move toward the player. You would simply have to make sure to go through those holes and survive for as long as possible. This mode would also support a maximum of 2 players. There are also other unused modes I didn't mention because I couldn't think how they would work in the game. Here's the list in case you are curious. Items can bring chaos and randomness to battles, which can make things quite fun. Especially if you just want to take a sit and play casually. Let's take a look at some of the wacky items I was able to come up with. The first item on our list is a poison bottle. This item will essentially be the opposite of a health bottle. They will occasionally be dropped into the battlefield by armed drones. Stepping inside their poisonous zone will drain your HP. In a sense, they will act more as a hazard. The next item is a fist statue. Breaking this statue will temporarily make your gloves bigger, allowing you to land punches much more effectively. Sometimes a green test tube might appear out of nowhere. Make sure to break it to summon a cell that will help you in battle. The cell will take 3 hits to be defeated. Alternatively, you can use this test tube as a pillar to hide behind. Our next item might look like it was pulled straight out of the Super Mario series, which is actually the case. Say hello to the question block. Hitting this block will temporarily swap your gloves with those of your opponent. Better start practicing with other gloves or else your opponent might have the upper hand in battle. The next item won't necessarily help or harm you in battle. Instead, it will help you unlock more gloves faster. This item is a mystery box, which arms drones will occasionally drop. Make sure to grab it and find out what gloves hide inside it. Now that I think about it, arms could use some more glove attributes. Let's take a look at what new glove attributes the ARMS labs have been able to develop. There are currently 8 different ARM attributes in the game, with poison being the last one introduced back in version 4.0. So, allow me to introduce 3 new attributes. Attribute number 9, Water. This attribute allows you to disable your opponent's ARM attributes for a short time. I wonder how they will feel about it. Attribute number 10, Confusion. As the name implies, this attribute will allow you to confuse your opponents. As a result, their left and right punches will be inverted for a while. And finally, ARM attribute number 11, Mend. Aside from damaging your opponent, this attribute will also heal you by 3 HP. Master Mummy fans rejoice. Well, this video turned out to be way longer than what I had expected. If you are still watching, thank you very much. I hope you found my video entertaining. I mostly make arms and Advance Wars related videos, so if that interests you, feel free to subscribe. Take care and I'll see you next time.